let us get the NFL injuries, if there are any, moving ahead. Of course, next week, right here on TSN 690, we'll have the AFC, NFC championship games. I believe Sunday at 3 o'clock is when they all kick off. Our coverage begins at 2 p.m. right here on TSN 690, so that should be a lot of fun. We'll be on right after those games, around 10 o'clock until midnight, so looking forward to that. Stefano, what do you have for us?
All right, well, in the Patriots-Texans game, the Patriots, of course, advancing to the AFC Championship next week, but two key injuries in this game. Rob Gronkowski, who had broken his forearm earlier in the year, re-injured it, and it is broken again, and he'll have to have season-ending surgery, so he will be out next week. Huge loss for the Pats.
Sure, yep.
And
if you didn't see the play, by the way, they had Gronkowski lined up as a wide receiver. They sent him deep, a nice one-on-one mismatch, and the ball from Brady was thrown slightly out of bounds. Gronkowski actually made a nice catch out of bounds, I believe, but he was out of bounds. He rolled on that arm, which had a cast, and he re-injured it.
And as well, Danny Woodhead on the game's first play injured his thumb, and he did not return to action, so possibly a fracture there in his thumb. And, that's another loss in the Patriots' weapons on offense, even though they're so deep.
They keep on going.
They're really deep.
You have a whole lot of talent on that roster, and I don't know. I don't see them being affected all that much. But again, I think Baltimore will give them a heck of a challenge next week. Should be a phenomenal game.
And in the early game today, we have John Abraham of the Atlanta Falcons re-injuring his ankle in the second quarter, and he did not return to action.
Now, that's a huge loss. Defensive end, John Abraham, a guy who can require double teams. And he's the guy who got banged up in the last game for the Falcons right before the playoffs. And people were thinking, oh, boy, they shouldn't have played this guy at the end. But he got hurt, and he tried to give it a go today. Didn't work out, and that's going to be a key injury if the 49ers can take advantage of it next week running the ball. And obviously, Kaepernick will have maybe a even bigger field day than he would have had Abraham been in there.
And that could have been a big factor as well with the Seahawks storming back in the second half, scoring 28 points. Maybe Abraham's absence played a part in that.
That's a great point as well. All right, so Stefano, any other injuries, or that's
no? That's it going into next week.
Okay, now what are the two spreads we have so far from the early odds makers?
All right, well, we have the NFC Championship game that starts first, and we have the San Francisco 49ers off that huge win yesterday, actually favorites in Atlanta, 3 points.
3-point favorites on the road in Atlanta. Boy, I really got this one wrong. I thought the Falcons would be over a field goal favorite coming into this game, and you know what? It's very tempting to take Atlanta with the points here. I would think it's very tempting. I think this line's going to come down. I can't see the 49ers being 3-point favorites come kickoff. I can't see that happening. I'm gonna say this line gets down to 2 points by the time we're on air on Tuesday night, 11 o'clock.
That could very well be. I mean, of course, everybody has that victory by the 49ers fresh in their minds. They have that performance by Kaepernick fresh in their minds, but maybe as the week goes on and you start to wonder the playoff history between these two teams. I mean, San Francisco's only won once of the past 5 outings in the Georgia Dome, so maybe that'll play a factor.
Fair enough. And then the other line.
And the other line, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship, we have the Patriots 8.5-point favorites at home over Baltimore.
That's a lot of points. That is definitely a lot of points, especially based on what they were able to do against Houston. Certainly that's playing a lot into what the odds makers are thinking. However, you can't discount Baltimore. And this Baltimore team is not the same team that struggled down the stretch. Everything is flying right now for them. I think the biggest thing, and I'm going to say it again, I said it on Tuesday, I said it last Sunday, the biggest difference with this Ravens team right now versus when they were struggling down the stretch of the regular season, Flacco is confident in that deep ball. They have a good secondary. McCourty, Aqib Talib, great players. But the speedsters of Torrey Smith, Jacoby Jones, and obviously Anquan Bolden, the best hands maybe of those three, they are flying right now in so much confidence. I think that's the big equalizer here is the Ravens are able, with confidence, to get the big play when they need it to stay in the game or to tie it or to pull ahead. And that, I think, is what's going to keep this game close. Every time the Patriots are going to try and pull away, the Ravens are going to pull in, reach into their bag and pull out a big, deep ball play.
And beyond the X's and O's, I don't think you can discount the emotional factor from the Ravens, given that they were so close last year to beating the Patriots and they missing the 32-yard field goal at the end, and the fact that it could be Ray Lewis's final game. And you saw them rallying a lot yesterday in the second half, so I'm sure that's going to play a factor as well into keeping the game close.
Yeah, I think so as well. And the line again was what? Was it 8 points? You said?
8.5.
8.5 points. I don't think this line's going to move a lot. I think it's going to stay relatively stable, maybe move down to 8. I can't see it rising to 9. I don't see a lot of people all of a sudden jumping on the Patriots in light of what Baltimore was able to do on the road. Remember now, Ray Rice ran for over 100 yards in that game, but they were hard-fought yards, and for a while, especially in the first half, the Ravens were staying in that game without a running game. So if they can establish the run game early with Ray Rice, I think that the Ravens have a legitimate shot in this game. In fact, I believe that you're going to see some Bernard Pierce in this game. They didn't use him a lot against Denver. They used him a lot the week before against Indianapolis. And, just to kind of mix things up with the game film, Patriots will see a lot of Ray Rice when they're studying that game film versus Denver. I think if they're going to go to Bernard Pierce here, it gives them a little something different.
And another thing they didn't go to yesterday was throwing to Ray Rice. I mean, he got 30 carries on the ground, but they didn't throw to him at all in the game, it seems. So I'm sure that's going to be something that they take into account next week when they go to New England. They're going to need all the weapons on offense they can get. And if Ray Rice is your best player on offense, you got to give him all the touches you can get.
Absolutely. It is Game Points here on TSN 690. All right, well, in the next segment, we're actually talking a little bit of baseball just ahead of some MMA talk, and then we'll round it out this hour with Dave Pagnotta of the fourthperiod.com, the latest on the NHL news and notes from around the league. Matt Snyder will join us next from CBS's Eye on Baseball blog, and he's a guy who mentioned Tim Raines this week in his blog. He's kind of sympathetic, I guess, to the Montreal plight to see him make the Hall. Ask him about his thoughts on the debacle that was nobody elected to the Cooperstown this past week, and moving forward, get his thoughts on what, if anything, should change in that process. We'll be back.